Just three ordinary guys trying to understand the crazy world around them. We don't have all the answers, but we've got all the questions. You're listening to Just Add Bourbon with Jimmy, JD, and Brad.
Welcome, everybody, to the Just Add Bourbon Podcast. I'm Jimmy Don Kerr.
I'm Brad Broaddus.
And I'm JD Damon.
Guys, got another good week of topics, but before we get into those, I want to share a story with you guys, something that happened to me. You know, we came early last Sunday and recorded the show because I was going out of town on a road trip with my daughter. My daughter's friend Reagan had invited her to go to the Great Wolf Lodge, and Reagan's grandfather, Danny, was taking her and asked me if I wanted to go, you know, just because, you know, he's a guy, and I guess that, you know, feels kind of strange or whatever to, you know, to take two girls or a daughter that's not your own. So we were a little late leaving because we came and did the podcast, and then I had to go home and edit the show and get it put out. So we get up to Cincinnati about 6 o'clock, and Danny goes in to, you know, get the room and do all that, and I'm unloading all the luggage and getting the girls packed up and, you know, going to walk in. Well, I walk in, I can see immediately that Danny's agitated. And I thought, oh, God, what's going on? So I walk up, and he immediately, this poor guy standing behind the counter, he says, "Tell him what you just told me." So he begins to tell me that they don't have a room for us. They're renovating the entire first floor. We were the last people to show up. So they didn't have a room for us, and they were putting us over in the Comfort Suites for the night. So during the middle of this, I realize that they think we're a gay couple with two daughters. And I immediately, take advantage of that, right? I'm like, this is ridiculous. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to comp the room. You're going to pay for our dinner. You're going to do all this. And this poor guy at the counter is just like, I'm so sorry, you know, because they think we're a gay couple. So I go on and I list all these demands I have. I want the best room that you've got, blah, blah, blah. So they put us in the Comfort Suites. We go over. We come back. They comped our rooms. We go to the room. The girls had gift baskets that had about $250 worth of stuff in each one. We didn't pay for a meal. We didn't pay for anything. But then the next morning, here's the kicker. Tuesday morning when we were going to leave, you know, we had a comp breakfast at the hotel.
Right.
And we go down, and I just got out of bed, had on a pair of black Nike shorts and a blue Kentucky shirt that said Kentucky across the front of it with a Nike swoosh. Well, the girls had bought matching sweatshirts, so they were dressed just alike. So we go down, I go through the buffet line, I do all that, go over and sit down. Danny's kind of got this look on his face, and I'm like, what? He said, you know, the girls are matching, right? And I said, yeah. He said, well, so are we.
No.
And I look, and he has on a pair of black shorts and a blue Kentucky shirt that says Kentucky across the front of it. And he said, everybody in here staring at us. So we can continue to perpetuate the ideal that we were a gay couple there with our daughters because we were all matchy at breakfast. So Danny says, I got to go up to the room and get my wallet. And he goes up and changes shirts. So I said, I thought that was crazy how, I mean, dude, they hooked us up in a way. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you all the free stuff we got. I went down to get a pizza for lunch, and they hadn't comped us for lunch. And I was trying to use the band to pay for it. And the lady's like, well, it's not working. She said, well, let me call the front desk, you know, blah, blah, blah. And reaches me the phone. I said, well, we came last night and we didn't get a room, all that. And she said, just hand the phone back to the lady. I hand it back. They handed me the pizza. No charge. Danny was at the bar getting a beer. We were hanging out there at the water park. And he went up and was talking to the lady there. And she's like, oh, yeah, we heard all about that last night. They had, at their staff meeting that morning, they were told to make sure they took care of us. And it is my belief it was all because they thought we were a gay couple.
That's great.
Well, I know one thing. Next year, when we go on family vacation, Tiff and Amy are staying in the car.
and we're going into checkout, I'm going to have my hand in your back pocket.
But no, I thought that was crazy. I said, of all the things to happen, and Addison was griping at me because I came and did the podcast and we were going to be late. And I said, look at all this free stuff you got. Yeah. So I don't know. Anyway, it was pretty nuts. So I thought I would share that story with the two of you.
I just wanted to say about Brad putting his hand in your pocket. I don't what's odd about that? Is it that the way you always travel?
JD said, that's how you walk in here every week. What's different about that? So let's get into our topics this week, guys. And the first one, I guess the biggest story has to be in the country is the Trump impeachment proceedings. And that started this week. They had Taylor in to testify. What was the other gentleman's name, Brad? Kent. Had him in, and then they had the ambassador in. And I watched pretty much all of the Taylor and Kent hearing. I was working over here that day, and so I have a TV in my office, and so I turned it on. So I watched pretty much the whole thing. And I went into it, and I thought about you, JD, and I thought, I'm going to go into this and try to have an open mind and really listen to the testimony that they give. And when the Democrats were talking and asking their questions, I thought, okay, maybe there is something here. Then the Republicans do their questioning, and I thought, this is complete BS. This is all just BS. So then I go to the social media pages and then the web pages of all the talking heads and all these different things. And if you're against Trump, the Democrats wore it out that day. If you're for Trump, the Republicans killed it. And it got me thinking, and I was like, you know what? One of two things has to happen here. We either have to get rid of the two-party system, where there's no D or no R, and those are the two main ones. I mean, you've got the Green Party and, some of the others that aren't really relevant. We've either got to get rid of that, because even after hearing it, I was questioning myself, do I believe that the Republicans did better because I'm a Trump supporter? So either A, we've got to get rid of the R or the D, or we've got to get rid of the talking heads. Because there's just no way that you can watch any of that. And then you want to go away and you want some expert analysis on what happened. And you're either getting somebody crushing Trump or you're getting somebody
singing his praises.
One of the two. It's hard to make a good decision for yourself on what's going on. And I feel like I got into a discussion with a guy that works for me. He's a bigger liberal than you ever thought about being. Hardcore to the left. And I said, well, what about this and this and this? No, Trump is he's a criminal, blah, blah, blah. So what do you guys think? I mean, do you think that the time of the two-party system has passed? And do you think we ought to try to rid ourselves of these talking heads or just stay away from them?
I think the time of the two-party system probably passed a long time ago. People are just now kind of starting to see the game that we've been playing for a long, long time. You've got, and as far as the talking heads are concerned, your life is a whole lot less stressful if you just turn off the TV and don't listen to them, because you're going to get whatever information where you want to go. If you want to get this side of the story, you go here, and vice versa. And the thing is, this isn't new. This isn't something that's just come up in the last couple of years. People are just becoming aware of it now. I think Scott Adams, I don't know if y'all are familiar who he is, the guy that did the Dilbert cartoon. But he's a big persuasion guy. And he supports Trump, but he'll even admit, he's left to Bernie as far as what, his beliefs. But I think he probably put it best, and he said that you have two different movies playing on the exact same screen. The same thing's happening, but you've got different groups of people, no matter what the information is, that's seeing a completely different story. And again, I don't think anything's changed with that. I just think that now people are somewhat becoming aware of it.
In my opinion, I'm right on board with you guys. As far as the two-party system being outdated and doesn't really give anybody a chance if you're not plugged into the system. I mean, if you think about it, anybody can be a Democrat and anybody can be a Republican, right? And nobody can ever get kicked out of those clubs, But the problem is, as I see it, is if you get rid of the two-party system, what do you replace it with?
Well, what I would like to see, I think I would like to see is you have candidates that come out. There's no D, there's no R. They say, get in the debate type scenario. Here are the issues. Here's what I believe. And then you just decide based on that. And there's no, I guess, outside influence or maybe perceived influence because they're a Democrat or they're a Republican.
I just think people are still going to team up based on the issues, based on what they consider the 10% that we all disagree on. They're going to team up. They're going to jump on that team. So I don't know that we can move forward with anything else. If you take somebody like me who's a proud independent, I'm proud that I don't adhere to the Republicans. I'm proud that I don't adhere to the Democrats. Just because, and it's so frustrating. I got into another debate, on Facebook. I know it's crazy to believe. Oh, Obama did this. So? That don't make it okay just because Obama did that. You can't, don't use that against me. I don't care. I don't care if Trump did that, whatever. Just going forward, I don't know how somebody like me, who's an issue person, I think I've been pretty consistent being an issue person. I don't see how I could get into a party because I'm not going to adhere my allegiance to a person or an ideology if I disagree with it.
And, that makes a great point because, I'm consider myself independent as well. Trump is really the only, just because I support him, I've never aligned with the Republican Party in any way, right? I've always considered myself an independent.
Right.
So you've got two people that are independent, but we're
miles apart on something.
Miles apart, independent, which is okay. That's a good thing. I think where some of that will start in the past, if you had a third party candidate, Libertarian Green Party might have got the closest, but they've never got the same platform. I don't know how you equal that out, but you've had that a number of times, where they would get shut out of debates. So I think that part of it has to be fixed. I don't know how you fix it, because what's going to happen is, I agree with you, it needs to go away. But I feel like no matter how you do it, we end up back in the same spot we are now because of the money. So unless you do something about the money, I don't know how this works on a mass level, but even for like local elections, I've always thought, what if you had, because in local elections are just the same, right? The person with the most money normally wins. So what if there was a limit on, okay, you can have X amount of signs. This is what you can have no matter who you are. If you got $100 million, this is how many signs. You can strategically figure out where you're going to put them. You've got X amount of commercials, right? Because all of this always comes back to the war chest.
And maybe that's the answer, is getting the control on the money that's allowed to be spent on the elections. I just, I think, I consider myself an independent because I have a lot of Democratic beliefs. I have a lot of Republican beliefs. I'm really somewhere in the middle. That's how I feel. But I'm sitting there watching that, and I know that there's a lot of people out there that are watching that hearing and having the same thought I was. Is like, geez, if you believe this way, if your allegiance is over here, then you're going to believe this. If your allegiance is over here, you're going to believe that. Instead of just sitting down, I just wonder, and I like to believe that I can separate myself from, I am a Trump supporter. Now, I think he does some stupid things, which I'll talk about here in just a little while with one of our other topics. But I know there's a lot of people out there that just see the D. This is what they are. Just see the R. That's what they are. And the country is literally split right down the middle right now. And how do you bring that back to where it's not D or R? It's issues, like JD says. I think you are. You're absolutely an issues guy. It's one of the, as far as preconceived notions, I've always known JD, but we would debate and I was like, JD's a liberal. But when you sit down and talk to JD is really an issues person. Now, he may lean left a little bit, but he's an issues person. I like to think I am. I like to think Brad is too. But there's a lot of people out there who aren't, and I just don't know how you make that go away to where you can just listen to, say, JD runs for office and I run for office, and we get up and we talk about, here's our belief on abortion, here's our belief on the border, here's our belief on taxes, here's our belief on health care. And then you decide, okay, what he's saying makes more sense to me. Maybe he's a Democrat. But the veil of the Democrat left wing is not on him. So maybe I support that.
And why can't you, like last week, for instance, I'm sure we had conservatives listening to the show that were all worked up because I was bashing Mitch McConnell. Well, there was another episode where I was saying Mitch McConnell's done a good job with the judges. Right. Why can't it be like that? Why can't you?
It should be that way, though.
And,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
And it's almost like I think that people really get their feet buried in the sand because they feel like if I say on this one issue, if I agree with the other side on this one issue, then I've lost. I mean, it's almost a tribal thing.
It really is. And so I'm going to give you this John Adams quote that I heard today while I was researching this. Listen to a debate, and they really echoed what I just said. It's a two-party system and it's terrible, but it's the best we've got. So here's what John Adams said about it. There's nothing which I dread so much as a division of the Republic into two great parties, each arranged under its leader, and concerting measures in opposition to each other. This, in my humble apprehension, is to be dreaded as the greatest political evil under our Constitution. So I think that was some great insight and foresight by one of our founding fathers.
So how do you fix it?
I don't know. But there's got to be a way, because here's what I do know. I know that the D and the R don't represent the majority of Americans. I think people get buried into that, but I don't think it represents them. And I have some information to back me up on this. I don't think there was ever a more clear difference between two candidates than what we just had in the state of Kentucky. We had Matt Bevin on the right, who's a Republican, and Andy Beshear on the left as a pretty far left Democrat. We all agree on that, right? Voter turnout was only 42% of the registered voters. So I feel like if people were truly being represented by the two parties, there would be 80-90% voter turnout.
And what's crazy about that number is that was actually a record for Kentucky.
It was actually a higher number than anybody expected. We was expecting 30.7, yeah. Mm-hmm. So there has to be a way to fix it. I'm not smart enough to fix it, or I don't have enough information to fix it. But there's definitely a need for another party.
Because I think you've got people running, probably on both sides, that feel a little different than the party on a number of issues. But the deal is, if you're going into the Republican Party, if you don't stand firm on this, and this, you can't get in. If you're a Democrat and you want to run as a Democrat, hey, agreeing with us on these issues is just the cost of admission to get on the dance floor. And that's where we're at.
Early in 2016, there's a guy from Virginia named James Webb, who was a Virginia governor from coal-producing state, who I was really behind. And he didn't make it, a month. And he was run off stage by the Democratic Party, And on top of that, I've told you guys many times before, I was a big John Kasich fan. I would have voted for John Kasich had he won the nomination. But those were both guys who kind of pushed back on some of the things that the party are aligning themselves with, especially in the case of Jim Webb, who, was still a fossil fuels guy.
Yeah, and that's one of those things, I've yet to see a candidate really in any election in a while that actually represented all my beliefs. Because like I said, they kind of range far and wide in what I believe. And I believe you hit the nail on the head, Brad, when you said it's about the money. And so what we always say, it's always about the money, right? A candidate like that, who would probably really represent the three of us the best, can't get the money to get on the stage.
Right, for sure.
And that's what I think is wrong. Not anybody can just run for an election.
That's why I think it's going to take somebody like Ross Perot. I think had a great opportunity in the late 90s because he was able to fund his own campaign and he could afford to go head-to-head with these big parties. But he shot himself in the foot.
Because really the two people that have made the biggest run, or at least in our lifetime, I'm sure you could go back and find a number of people and maybe somebody from the Whig Party, but is you had Ross Perot and Ron Paul. And even, Ron Paul came out and then the Libertarian Party kind of had a surge there. But then it's almost seems to me like the Libertarian Party has kind of been co-opted in a way now. And the more you break it off, again, it's all going to come back to the money or limits on the money. And I don't know how you work that out, but definitely the two-party system, to JD's point, was a fear of the founding fathers. We know it's a problem. Just don't know how to fix it.
And we know there's a huge disconnect by voter turnout percentages and stuff like that. But even across party lines, in the 2018 poll by the Pew Research Committee, 36% of Republicans thought that the liberal policies are a threat to the nation's well-being. And the same feelings were reflected by the Democrats at 27%. And I'm going to tell you, I know we don't agree on everything, but I never felt like the way you felt was a hazard to our national security, And I've never heard anybody say, yeah, I'd like to get that liberal in there so he can run our country into the ground, or I'd like to get that Republican there so he can run our country into the ground. That's not how we think. But we think that about other people. And I think the media has controlled the conversation so well and kept us so divided that's why these numbers are so high.
I think you may be right, but that's what I came away from that with, was we got to do something different. This is crazy. I didn't leave thinking that Trump had done something to the level of impeachment. I left thinking, well, both sides put on a really good show today, and then you go to the talking heads and it's the same old BS. And it just really was disheartening.
And we got 6 or 8 weeks left of this.
Yeah. But it goes back, when the first time after Trump was elected, he met with Putin. I remember flipping on Fox News, and it says, the headline said, Trump takes harsh stance against Putin. So I flipped over to CNN, and it says, Trump cowers in front of Putin. It's like, who do you believe, man? And you know what the truth is? The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he was probably tough at some points and probably not so tough on some points, which is the way you ought to be, right?
And there was a headline from I think it was New York Times, had a headline that they posted in one part of the country. It had one headline, and what they were putting in the papers in the other end of the country was a completely different headline, kind of to cater to the readers.
Sure.
So do we want to talk at all about the actual impeachment hearings themselves, or are we all kind of over that? I mean, at this point, like I said, it's just a clown show to me, and I'm kind of like everybody else. I'm kind of wore out with it, and there may be some things come up in the next few weeks that we talk about, but is there anything you guys want to bring up about that, or we just move on to the next topic?
I just want to talk about Jovanovic, really.
So the next topic will be witness intimidation. And that was the other, I guess, really big story that came out of that, is because Trump started live tweeting while this woman was testifying. And Schiff lost his mind and said that Trump was trying to intimidate the witness. So let me just kind of read to you. I pulled this from an article. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam B. Schiff accused President Trump of witness intimidation as Mr. Trump tweeted criticisms of former Ukraine Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch as she testified in the impeachment hearing on Friday. As the former diplomat described her abrupt departure from Ukraine, Mr. Trump targeted her foreign service record, saying everywhere she went, things turned bad. She started off in Somalia. How did that go? Then fast forward to Ukraine, where the new Ukrainian president spoke unfavorably about her in my second phone call with him. The president tweeted, "It's a U.S. president's absolute right to appoint ambassadors." So, JD, you were the one that brought this one to my attention as far as a topic that we wanted to talk about. So, you start us off. Do you think Trump was trying to intimidate the witness?
Absolutely. And I think it's also not his first attempt to intimidate the witness. I think, looking back now, and the reason I think he released some of those transcripts was to intimidate her. And he went back to that conversation in the tweet. And here was what was said during that transcript. This is President Zelensky talking to President Trump. "It was great that you were the first one who told me that she was a bad ambassador because I agree with you 100%. Trump's response, "Well, she's going to go through some things." Now, if you was the boss, anywhere, any company, and you had a a manager sent over to another city, and you was talking to another boss of another company, and that manager had to work for that company, and you said, "Oh well, JD, he just ain't much of an employee, but he's getting ready to go through some things." Now, do you think that would be intimidating to somebody? Do you think that's intimidating? It's pretty intimidating, man. What if it was a mob boss on trial, and he was saying that about witnesses about to go up? He said, he's about to go through some things.
I'm not real sure, though. Like, I guess if maybe she got her feelings hurt from the transcript would be the only reason she was really testifying. Because she wasn't a part of anything else. She wasn't a part of the phone call. She wasn't a part of the planning of the phone call.
Well,
she just got her feelings hurt, I guess, because she got removed from her position.
Did she get her feelings hurt, or did she get intimidated by the most powerful politician in the world?
I find it hard to believe that this woman was intimidated. When she was in Somalia, it was a war-torn country. She was dodging bullets.
Right.
And stood right through. And I don't think there's any doubt that this woman's probably a good ambassador. Trump just didn't like her. And the truth is, Obama fired pretty much every ambassador that he had when he came in.
Right. Ain't nothing wrong with it. I mean, that's
a lot of Obama's ambassadors came back in body bags. I just don't think this woman would be intimidated by that. And I think as far as trying to intimidate her while she was on the stand,
I mean, was she on Twitter?
She wasn't on Twitter. She have told her what was being tweeted.
So, you don't think she was intimidated, but now Schiff said, how do you feel about this? And she says, well, it's pretty intimidating. So now what do you think? Was she intimidated?
I think Schiff was trying to intimidate her. He was the one that told her.
Okay, so we got a lady who's under oath.
You don't think it didn't
Who's under subpoena by the Congress. And now you got the President of the United States who's under the impeachment inquiry, who's quoting out the things that she's going to go through some things and saying these bad things derogatory to her. You don't think that'd be intimidating? Whether she was involved with anything at all, which we'll get into in a minute, that you don't think that'd be intimidating? The most powerful politician in the whole world is saying you're about to go through some things. I don't care who you are, and especially after she says, well, it's pretty intimidating. I think she was intimidated. And whether she was or not, I think he was trying to intimidate her. That's what his purpose was, to intimidate.
I don't know. I just think that... So I looked into this a little bit, and basically there's 3 ways to commit witness intimidation under the law. Okay? Physically harming a witness, bribing a witness, or coercing a witness to lie. Did Trump do any of these things?
That could have been a coercion.
Under the law.
I mean, it could have been considered as coercion, I would think.
He coerced her to lie?
If he said, yeah, you're about to go through some things, let's let her, he put that transcript out there. Why did he put that part out there? What did it have to do with the Bidens? Why do you think he even put that out there? So that would get to her, so she'd know that if you get up there and testify, you're about to go through some things.
He put it out there because they were accusing him of quid pro quo with the Ukrainians.
No, not at that point they wasn't. Not at the point the conversation took. They hadn't come up with quid pro quo until September. This conversation took July 26th.
Well, do you think that he would have said something like that, not thinking it would ever go out?
Possibly. So now he's got a lot of transcripts, so now he knows that when it does get released that she's going to hear this.
So, he's at the time thinking you're having a conversation that's a private conversation.
Right.
And we've not been doing impeachment stuff. None of the stuff would even be out in the public anyway.
Right.
So that's the part I'm getting at, is if that was never intended for her to hear in the first place, he kind of got his hand forced because the Dems were forcing this impeachment thing on him to put it out. You follow what I'm saying?
I do. So what you're saying is, when he said that, he never knew that she was going to see that anyway. But my question is, why release that part of the transcript? What did that have to do with the quid pro quo?
Well, because
and clearing his name.
Because they're accusing him of not releasing all the transcript anyway.
Whether he has it.
Well, not according to
read into record the other day. I sit and listen to it. Devin Nunes read the first phone call into record.
The first one. This is the
second one. The Morrison guy that was actually on the phone call, they just released his transcript and said that transcript was accurate based on his memory.
And that was released by Schiff.
That was released by Schiff.
And then she perjured herself within about the first 15 minutes of the hearing the other day.
Right. She might be the world's worst anything, but the president still tried to intimidate her by saying
something that was never intended for her to hear.
Right, but then he released it so she did see it, right? Who did that? Who did that? Who released that so she could hear it, see it?
But why did he release it?
so she could see that. There's
You
no
think
point.
you think the whole reason he released it was so that he could
Possibly. I
so
don't know.
that she could see that.
That is,
I mean, the simplest explanation a lot of times is the right one, and the simplest explanation is he's getting accused of quid pro quo with the Ukrainian government, and so he released it to try to prove there's no quid pro quo, not to intimidate a witness
Okay, so but if you
that he didn't know was going to be called.
So he didn't. Okay, so he didn't know. So he released that thing. Said you're going to go through some things, and it did get out there though, right? And then you tweet while the person's testifying against you, who's still under subpoena, who still can come back and testify again, and so that's not intimidation still yet.
So he's
Guys,
he's not allowed to criticize somebody who is making accusations against him on hearsay. You can criticize.
We'll get to that.
You can criticize a witness. You can criticize a process. And she would have never known that he was doing that until after the fact, unless Schiff had told her.
Well, but she could be called in still yet, Jimmy. Dawes. She's still under subpoena. She's still a witness.
But they don't know she's going to get called in.
And he don't either.
Realize the Republicans have not been able to call in one person. They're not allowed to call in anybody. They wanted to bring in even Nellie Orr, right? So there's a number, and they couldn't bring in anybody, but somebody that they bring in. I mean, it's just kind of a far stretch to me that this woman is so powerful, and she knows nothing about the call or anything. But he released this transcript
To intimidate her. So this doesn't make any sense
should
to
he
me.
tweet it while she was on there? No, probably not.
Look.
Hold on.
Let me say this though
Okay.
before you go. Trump tweeting while she was stupid. I think that was bad form by him. I think it was stupid. It's one of those, what I was talking about earlier. He does some dumb things sometimes. That to me was dumb.
Right.
It's a bad look. The guys on the Republican side of the House Intelligence Committee were pretty much making this case for him. I mean, they asked her straight up, do you know of anything that President Trump did that committed a crime? No. Do you know of anything that President Trump did that constitutes bribery? No. That pretty much settled it with me with her. That's the thing, the intimidation part. Your point's taken that it might, guys, I'm on a lot of phone calls and I say things that I don't want people to hear.
Right.
About other people that, may or may not be happening. The intent is not to intimidate them. It's just saying, well, she's probably going to go through some things. I don't think that when he said that,
he had the foresight to know that.
He had the foresight to know that he was going to be impeached and that, maybe he should because that's all they've done since the start. But, the other thing has gone from, the point I wanted to make was the whole impeachment thing has gone from quid pro quo, well, that's not working, that's kind of falling apart on him, to now it's bribery,
well, that is
to extortion.
The only reason they changed it from quid pro quo to bribery is because that's what the Constitution actually says about bribery, right? Anyway, even his tweet was wrong. Like we have the problem, we have a president who just doesn't understand how government works, guys. And he's getting on tweeting and he's lying. It's just a lie. What he said was a lie.
Part of it was inaccurate?
Everything he said.
Specific points were inaccurate about what he said.
All right. She said everywhere she's been has been a failure. Well, that's because that's not true, first off, because she had great success a lot of the places she went. But of the 7 places she's went, 5 of them were designated as hardship posts, which means they was bad to begin with. So he said she went to Somalia. How'd that turn out for you? Like Somalia was a war-torn country when she got there. Okay? Then he said that it's a president's right to appoint ambassadors. Guys, presidents don't appoint ambassadors. That's not how it works. Presidents nominate ambassadors and the Senate confirms them.
Right, but they serve at the will of the president.
The ambassadors do serve at the will of the president, but he don't appoint them, does he?
Well, if you nominate
so nomination's not appointing.
You're kind of splitting hairs there.
Yeah, you're splitting hairs there because
who picks?
Of course.
Well, but you are, though. But you are, is the thing.
So
he basically appoints him. Now, the Senate has to confirm his...
So he didn't...
His
is the Senate pick
So there's no difference between nomination and appointment.
But does the Senate pick him?
No.
The president
They confirm
does.
them. But they can turn them away, though, right?
And it's at the president.
If you own a business,
mm-hmm.
If you want to hire somebody as a secretary, who do you have to ask?
Nobody, me.
So is that appointment or is that confirmation?
That's confirmation and appointment.
No,
it's both.
But you've got the power to do both those things.
Yeah.
So the president, does he appoint an ambassador or does he have to have them confirmed?
Well, they have to have everybody confirmed. I mean, so what's the argument with people saying he picked bad Supreme Court? I guess he didn't pick them then. Right.
Right. You can't blame him for the Supreme Court.
Well, he had him
justices.
nominated. Right. That's what he did. Exactly right. You're right. He had him nominated, and they had to be confirmed.
But
by
at the end, but
I
at the
just
end,
don't even understand that. But
well, but my point is, he don't know how government works. That's the whole point. He thinks they appoint him. It's the president's absolute right to appoint.
but at the end of the
But
day,
it isn't. So is that a true statement or not?
Maybe I'm the dumbest person in the room, but I'm confused right now.
yeah. All right. Here's my point, though. At the end of the day, they do serve at the will of the president. So if what we may deem as her doing a good job, and what President Trump deems as her doing a good job, may differ.
I'm sure they do.
I'm sure they do. But she serves at whatever he wants. If he wants to fire her, he fires her.
Right.
Now, was it right for him to criticize her the way he did? No, it's not. Why even do that? Why even live tweet that? Right. That makes no sense to me, and I agree with you there. But at the end of the day, if he didn't think she was doing a good job, and I'm sure there's things he knows that we don't,
Sure.
and he wants to get rid of her, fine.
I don't have the problem with that. My point is, when he tweets that it's the absolute right of the president to appoint ambassadors, is that a true statement or a false statement?
It's a true statement, but I think it's not relevant.
It's a true statement?
Well, no, I'm sorry. He has the right to appoint. They confirm. The Senate confirms whoever
So he don't
appoints.
appoint then. So he don't appoint. He nominates.
But again, at the end of the day, what does that matter? Why? What in
Because
the
the
gist
point
of the
is-
story? What does that even matter?
Because the point is, we have a president that doesn't understand how government works.
It doesn't mean not. But if you were going to send out a tweet, whether it's right or wrong that he sent it, how would it sound if he said, "Well, the president can appoint a person, and then it has to go through this process, and then they have to be confirmed by Senate."
That'd be much accurate than what he said. That's what that would be.
I just think you're. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just think
it's
you're
just a
drawing
reach.
straws there. I think it's a reach. I do. I mean, like I said, I kind of feel what you're saying, but I think it's a reach at the same time.
So here's my point: is we keep seeing this guy who, even when he was running for election, said we're going to build a wall. Mexico's going to pay for it. No, they're not. Ever. All right. When we get in there, I'm going to have the troops waterboard everybody else. These terrorists. No, can't do that either because you don't know how government works. We're going to go and tell this guy over in the Ukraine, well, I'm going to give him this money as long as he does this investigation, which that's my slant on it. Because he doesn't know how the government works. He tweets out, I'm going to appoint, the president has the absolute power to appoint ambassadors. It's because he doesn't know how the government works.
Yeah.
You lost me on that.
Yeah, you kind of lost me there too. I was with you on some of it, but
No, because he don't appoint them. What is there to lose?
But like I said, at the end of the day, though, when you're kind of ranking how things, what's been going on, and you rank those things, that would rank really low on the list.
Well, yeah, we're talking about
Something
we're talking about something that's put on Twitter. Of course,
right?
it is.
You know, but as far as at the end of the day, he can fire her if he wants to.
Sure, that's not.
He can criticize her if he wants to. This is the last time I checked, President had free speech just like the rest of us do. Is it good? Is it a good move to do? Absolutely not. I thought it was stupid.
He does have free speech. Are you allowed to coerce witnesses under federal indictment?
But again, you
Under
using the words-
under oath, are you allowed to, if he was a mob boss and did that, we'd be up in arms like, oh my God, John Gotti just...
But again, you're talking about something, I agree with what you just said about the mob bosses.
So it's no difference. It's the same people. It's the same thing. This is the most powerful person in the world.
She didn't know that he was tweeting until Schiff told her.
But she knew about what was going on. In the
Trump
conversation.
had no idea that this was even going to come up when he made that statement. And to say that he released that transcript so he could intimidate her, I think that's a reach. So again, at the end of the day, is he really under the law? I don't feel like he coerced her to lie. I don't feel like he bribed her. And I don't feel like he physically tried to harm her. So at the end of the day, did Trump did not show class when he did that in any way, shape, fashion, or form. I will give you that all day.
Why? Why was it classless?
Just, you shouldn't do it, man. Why would you do that? Why? Don't punch down. You know what I mean? Don't punch down. And I just don't, why would you do that? And I don't think that was right in any way, him doing that. But at the end of the day, for Schiff to come out and say that he was intimidating a witness is ridiculous, in my opinion.
So I think one of the big stories here that's not really being talked about, and I've just heard this today because I've heard some Republicans bashing McConnell because McConnell and those guys were like, yeah, well, you know, we'll take it to trial or do whatever. And they're saying, oh my gosh, McConnell's flipped and doing this. But we were talking about the two-party system. if you were going to infiltrate the Democratic Party and absolutely destroy it from inside, you know how you would do that? So they're going to keep this impeachment hearing going for however long, right? We're 12 months away from an election. So for the next however long that they drag this out, all the oxygen is being sucked out of the room. Does anybody know what any of the Democrats are running on?
No, I mean,
Very little.
Very little.
So then when, if this thing goes for
Healthcare.
6 or 8 weeks and then it goes, the only thing I know is Yang is promising people free money.
Yeah,
I
right?
saw that.
So this thing is going to go on and you're going to get to an election and nobody's going to have any clue what they're running on. So I'm surprised that the Democrats aren't coming out and saying, okay, we got to go. If you think he's this bad, then let's try to beat him in an election. But I think the deal is, we've talked about McConnell, we've talked about Nancy and Chuck and Maxine Waters and all these people that have been around for 30 or 40 years. Right? These are the people that write the laws and that pass the laws. They've been around for 30 or 40 years. And what have they done to improve your life? So I ask you all this question. Aside from, I know you had your issues with Trump of candor and those type of things, and that's fine. I agree with you on some of that stuff. But do you think, because we've seen, the stock market, I think just hit the peak, broke a record for the 20th time this year. Jimmy Don, you're kind of our in-house expert on the financial side of it. Is the country being run in the ground in your perspective financially at this point?
No, my 401k says otherwise.
So are we getting into other endless wars like we've been in forever? Are we on the verge of World War III? What do the unemployment rates look like? So what my question is, do you think that these lifetime appointed people and these lifetime politicians, are they scared that Trump is going to run the country into the ground and make it worse? Or is there a fear that he's going to make it better and they're going to be left holding the bag because they're going to have to explain why these things weren't fixed before? Because a lot of stuff he's doing now from a negotiation standpoint, whether you like him or not, the guy's a brilliant negotiator. I don't think too many people would argue with that side of it. But a lot of things that he's doing to fix it are simple things that could have been done 100 times and nobody's done it. So if you get to a point where this stuff gets exposed, that things are improving, then the people that have been there forever are going to have to explain why they never did anything to fix it. Because you've got people that's been there for 40 years, make the laws, pass the laws, but everything that's wrong in the country is wrong because the guy that's been there for 3 years.
I've honestly never heard anybody make that claim. But I also know that the president is a lot like a quarterback on the football team. They a lot of times take too much blame and they a lot of times get too much credit. And I really do feel that way. Our economy has been growing for going on 7 years now, or just a little over 7 years. So I'm not going to give all the credit to Trump, and I'm going to give all the credit to Obama, and I'm going to give all the credit to the House, and I'm going to give all the credit to the Senate. So I think we're all working together and we're making this thing work. So your point's well taken, though, that things are getting done. I'm glad. I am glad that our finances are in good shape. I'm glad people are back to work. Those are good things. I just think my main issue with Trump, it definitely is that he's got zero class and he wants everything to be about him, for sure.
And I think I think we can all find some agreement there because he does some things that drive me crazy. It's just at the end of the day, it's that old saying, actions speak louder than words. Is it what he's saying or is it what he's doing? And at the end of the day, what he's doing, I think is good for the country. And we can disagree on that, but that is what I think.
Right. And I want to make one last point about this before we move on. We talked about the Republicans not being able to call testimony, call witnesses. They could put this all to rest easily. If Mulvaney and Bolton would just go testify and quit defying the subpoenas they're under, they could put this whole impeachment to rest. But
it's no different. Schiff's not going to testify. The other people
The chief of staff, though, would be the one guy you think you'd want to testify on your behalf, right?
Well,
and they're trying to get him to, but so why defy the subpoena? I'm not going to all that. I'm just telling you he can end it.
But I think
if he's true.
I think everybody should go testify, including Schiff, including the whistleblower, including Mulvaney, including Bolton. I think they all should go testify.
Yeah, I'll have no problem with that.
Absolutely, man. I think you're right. Now, the only thing I'll say about that, though, why I think that Trump's, define it, it's just like if somebody accused you, JD, of something, and you show up to the court, and the person that accused you is running the whole show. They're determining what witnesses can be called. They're determining what questions can be asked. You might take a little offense to that, too, and maybe tweet out. That's just kind of my opinion. All right, so we've got some other good stuff to talk about, so let's hit this. Another thing, and, a lot of talk is out there about Donald Trump associates, people that are associated with Trump getting in trouble. And probably one of the most famous actually got convicted this week. Roger Stone, a former close advisor to Donald Trump, was found guilty on all counts, among them lying to Congress about his contacts with WikiLeaks during the 2016 race and attempting to cover it up by tampering with witnesses and concealing evidence from investigators. The verdict, delivered Friday, came a week after a half-long trial and around 9 hours of jury deliberation and will likely result in prison time for the eccentric 67-year-old Trump ally. What do you guys think about Roger Stone getting in trouble?
I go back, and I hate to attack Trump again, but I'm going to. I go back to the same old thing, though. You can't drain the swamp if you surround yourself with alligators. And you got Manafort, Stephanopoulos, now Stone, all going down. And we're praising this guy like he's draining the swamp. And to me, it's just silliness. But I'm glad, if he did what he's accused of doing, I'm glad he got caught.
He's been kind of a shady character. He's always been kind of a shady character.
Him and Manafort both.
Huh?
Him and Manafort both.
Yeah.
The only part that I think is kind of nuts is convicted of a process crime. Right? It wasn't a crime that he committed outside. He lied to Congress. And he lied to Congress because he said that he had an inside contact at WikiLeaks, which ended up being some comedian that Julian Assange went on his show and whatever. So he lied and said he had a contact that he didn't in fact have. Right. So that doesn't really help the Russia narrative in that part of it. But here's what I will say about it. If we're going to convict people on process crimes and them spend 35 or 45 years or whatever they're saying that he's going to spend, then maybe we should start, if you're going to get that kind of time for lying to Congress, could we start with Congress not being able to lie to Congress?
That's probably a good point.
It is, but it all comes down to the burden of proof. They have proved that, obviously, that he did lie. So, again, why the lies?
He's entertaining.
Who's he protecting? He's protecting somebody. And it's going to happen after re-election. He's going to get pardoned. And we all know that's going to happen.
Well, he's an entertaining guy. I watched that Netflix documentary, Get Me Roger Stone. That's a pretty entertaining documentary. If you've never watched it, you ought to watch it just to find out a little bit about the guy. He's a total eccentric. But when you texted me today about this particular story, I thought, what did that have to do with Trump? And you're like, well, we can all agree he's one of Trump's cronies, and I get that, affiliation. But I started thinking about it. I was like, okay, if we're going to, judge Trump by the people that he surrounds himself with, what about our other politicians, right?
Yeah.
So I just took a quick Google search, and these are the top 10 people that surrounded Barack Obama that got in trouble. Number 1, former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich, sentenced to 14 years in prison for political corruption. Tony Rosenko, sentenced to 10.5 years for corruption and kickbacks. Courtney Dupree, Democratic fundraiser, convicted of bank fraud. Willie Shepard, Obama bundler, and I didn't know what a bundler was. It's a political fundraiser who collects contributions from donors on behalf of a campaign, pleads guilty to assault. John Corzine, top Obama fundraiser, currently under FBI investigation, Obama's Wall Street guy. Shervin Newman, Obama bundler, currently under investigation for fraud. Abaki Asabanga, Obama bundler, under investigation for fraud. And then I'll skip these other two. Same thing. The last one's Bill Ayers. He's a domestic terrorist. early Obama backer, fellow board member on the Woods Foundation, and as this jokingly says, 4th of July pal. So if we're going to judge Trump by the people, I think the moral of this story is Trump is surrounded by probably some people that aren't so good. Roger Stone's always been shady in my mind, but Barack Obama is clearly not innocent of that either, and I don't think you can judge Trump based on what people that surrounded him have done.
So, since Obama was around some shady people, Trump should be allowed to be around shady people. Oh, no.
None of them should be around shady people.
Okay.
I'm just making the counterpoint to you because the reason that you, in my opinion, didn't want to bring up Roger Stone, and you said is because I'm going to bash Trump a little bit here, is because he was surrounded by some shady people. But they all are.
Yeah, and it's true. But what did Trump run on? On doing what? Did Obama run on draining the swamp and getting those people out of there? Or did Trump say we're going to drain the swamp, and that was the chance?
But I think the point...
Build the wall and drain the swamp.
I think that the point that Jimmy Don was making is because this person got indicted for something, it's not... You all know I wasn't a Barack Obama fan.
Right.
But I don't think Barack Obama is responsible for this person getting indicted.
No, I totally agree with that.
It's like we pick a side and we say, okay, well, it's okay if these people do it, but now if you have any affiliation on this side...
And it brings up the
Then
same
they're
thing
all
you were
guilty.
saying about when you get in debates with people. They'll bring up Hillary Clinton or they'll bring up Barack Obama. It's the same thing. These guys are all surrounded by shady people. That's part of the problem. And that was the point I was trying to make with that is, yeah, we can say, yeah, Roger Stone and Trump sucks because he was affiliated with Roger Stone. But I just demonstrated right there's your top 10 list of people who got in trouble that surrounded Barack Obama.
And I wasn't saying that. But what I'm saying is, if you're going to run on draining the swamp, then don't feed the alligators. That's my whole point of the thing, is when you run on, or people still saying drain the swamp, like, oh, you see these memes on Facebook all the time. It's like they turned the light on and all the cockroaches just started running. It's like, are you serious right now? Trump is not running the cockroaches, he's feeding them.
Well, look at the structure of the FBI, the Department of Justice, and the State Department. And you can see about the whole 7th floor has been removed in the last 3 years. So just like the Flint, we're talking about these people getting indicted. I don't know if y'all been following General Flynn's case at all. Looks like he's most likely going to get exonerated because they've come out just last week. And then they had to admit that when Sidney Powell called him out saying there was 2 notes, 2 sets of notes. And then they said, well, even if there was 2 sets, they wouldn't be any different. And then they came out and admitted last week and said, well, we got the notes switched between Bianca, and you'll never guess who the other guy was. Peter Strzok.
Yeah, no,
So
I mean...
it's going to be interesting 6 months.
Yeah, but no, like I said, I just don't think it's fair to condemn Trump because he's got somebody around him. And I agree with your point, though, about draining the swamp. I think that's a valid point, is don't feed the alligators. And that makes sense. But I think, Roger Stone was affiliated with Trump early on. And, again, it's me... He was affiliated with Donald Trump for years. Stone was the guy that was trying to get Trump to run for so long. But then, you had Manafort disappear. You had all these guys. I don't know why. But like I said, I just think it's unfair to blame or condemn Trump because he's surrounded by those people. Maybe that's not what you were doing, but...
No, I think it's not fair if you're not saying I want to drain the swamp. But if you're claiming that you're draining the swamp and putting all the kitties to bed, you're the daddy, then it's a fair criticism.
And that's a good point. I think that's a point well taken. I really do. All right, so a couple other things, guys. I mean, because I think those first 3 topics went way longer than we expected. That was a good debate, guys. JD's bringing it, and that was fun. So, the last couple are really sports related. And the first one was Myles Garrett. And Myles Garrett plays for the Cleveland Browns. And then the other night, at the end of a ball game, ripped the helmet off of the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers and then proceeded to try to hit him with it.
No, he didn't try to hit him with
hit him with it. And I don't know. I mean, it gets chippy in football games, and you can probably speak better to this, JD, than any of us. I mean, I never played football. I don't think you did either, did you, Brad?
Not at any kind of higher level.
Yeah.
I played through middle school.
So, but I mean, I know it gets chippy, JD, out there on the field sometimes.
Sure.
But now, is this a different level? I mean, this guy apparently is going to be suspended, right, for the rest of the year?
Yeah, he's indefinitely suspended at least through the rest of the year, maybe into next year. And I wouldn't be surprised if civil litigation comes against the guy.
Yeah, I mean, he attempted to bash his skull in.
Yeah, I mean, this is way beyond the pale, guys. I mean, taking somebody's helmet off and bashing him with it. I mean, I'm going to tell you, I grew up in a house. There's 3 brothers And you're not going to find a more competitive guy than me. And I'm the middle one of the three. So I was fighting big one and little one, you know what I mean? But they was up 21-7 with 4 seconds left, and he rips the helmet off the quarterback and hits him with it. I mean, at some point, you got to use your brains just a little bit and understand that you're being put in a bad situation and just go fight the next day. I'm trying to find out how big Myles Garrett is. He is 6'4", 272 pounds.
He ain't no small youngin'.
It's not no small man swinging a helmet at your head.
Yeah, I mean, I think you get to fight out on a football field. Well, it's kind of you're sitting there hitting people at full speed anyway. It's a pretty aggressive sport. So somebody even throws a punch at each other, that's, whatever. Not a big deal. That's part of the game. But when you rip another man's lid off and try to bust his cranium with it, then that's a whole different level. And I saw a meme the other day, and it had, I think it was him and Bobby Boucher, and said the only people in history to use their equipment in a game to try to beat an opponent.
So, and the only thing that I saw that I thought was really stupid about, I mean, obviously it's, man shouldn't have done that. But then, of course, you'll see this, well, does this give the NFL a black eye? And I was like, no, it gives this guy a black eye, right, and the Steelers quarterback. I mean, I don't think this gives the NFL a black eye. It's, again, you can't hold the NFL accountable necessarily for what this guy did out of emotion on the field. So the next thing is Colin Kaepernick basically held a tryout this week for the NFL teams. And my understanding is that the NFL was working with him to give him a platform, was going to do it at the Atlanta Falcons stadium or their training facility. And then he decided to move it because he said he wanted to be transparent. But then I read something along the lines of the NFL wasn't going to allow the media in. And the whole Colin Kaepernick thing wears me out. I'm just going to be honest with you. If the man can play football, he should be able to play football. If he can't, then he just needs to go somewhere else. I mean, he had Nike there to shoot a commercial. I mean, was that more about trying to get back in the NFL, or was that more about publicity?
I don't know. I can't speak to that. I think that he's going to end up getting signed and I don't think he's going to be a starter anywhere he goes because he's not a great NFL quarterback.
He had one good year, right, with San Francisco. Yeah. He had that kind of out-of-this-world year.
But if you look at his numbers, those are backup quarterback numbers. Those aren't Patrick Mahomes numbers. Those aren't Aaron Rodgers numbers. Those are Steve Beuerlein numbers. You know what I'm saying? Go to the sideline, and if you want to kneel your little heart away. But so I don't know. But I'm hearing the Jets have a lot of interest. There was actually quite a few teams at the workout, though. The Lions, the Chiefs, the Jets, the Eagles, 49ers, Titans, and the Redskins were all in attendance. So, I mean, there may be a market.
And I guess they were going to send the tape out to everybody and, let them review it and see if it was somebody that could help them.
The thing is, all these teams have quarterbacks. If he goes and signs with the team, he's be
a backup.
Now, I don't watch NFL, so maybe y'all can correct me on this, but who else gets that kind of treatment? Is that a normal thing for them to just say, okay, hey, we're having a tryout, all the teams come, bring all the press with you, we're going to shoot a Nike commercial? Because the I guess the part I don't understand is, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but when all this started, when he was actually still employed by the 49ers, I mean, this wasn't like Russell Wilson in his prime, right? Hadn't he already been benched? I mean, he was looking to possibly get cut anyway. So then he comes out with all these shenanigans to get all this media attention to be like, oh, well, I'm being put out of the league because I'm raising my hand or, because I'm kneeling and because I've got a voice. So it's like every time people forget who he is, then he just pops back up. But Nike was there, so I'm sure that all these people abroad that are making shoes for 20 cents an hour, I'm sure they feel like they're behind a good cause to help a multimillionaire that wants to be back in the spotlight.
Because didn't the NFL put out a statement, too, saying it's a shame that he didn't show up? Like he just moved it was like to a high school field, 44 miles.
Yeah.
And that was all he said because we want to be transparent and,
Yeah, I think the NFL didn't want him to video the workout or whatever. But, to your point, no, I don't think that any other quarterback would have got that spotlight. I think if, the Chiefs were working out a guy named Matt Moore as their backup right now, would you care?
No.
So, I think Nike just taking huge advantage of it. It's a marketing employee, you know.
And there's apparently he's still selling some shoes, or else they wouldn't. You know,
Right.
they're not. Nike's not stupid. They're not going to be there unless there's a market for it. It's just the whole thing, man. I'm kind of like Brad. You know, if you want to be a quarterback, then he's in shape. Clearly, look good, and if you're good enough, you'll get on a team.
Right.
And if you're not, you won't. But I just felt like it was more of a publicity stunt on his part. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just ignorant. But that's what I thought.
Right. Well, I don't know how much hand he had in the publicity and how much of it was Nike pushing the publicity, so I can't unfairly criticize him. But
That's
if the
point.
guy gets a chance in the NFL, then more power to him.
Yeah, I agree. So, any other topics we want to hit? I know one of the things we spent a lot of time on the show with last week was Matt Jones running for Senate. He announced this week that he wasn't going to run. You guys got any opinions on that, or best of luck? And we get KSR now indefinitely, so I'm
Get back on Hey Kentucky. It's on.
yeah, right. So I guess, guys, we'll jump into our college football picks here. I think the week we all had a decent week, but not great. I think Brad went 3-2, and me and JD
I went 4-1.
You went no. Oklahoma didn't cover though, did they? I don't think Oklahoma
I don't know
covered.
what spread was. Oh yeah, they won, but didn't.
Yeah, they won, but they didn't cover. So 3-2, 2-3. JD's still up a couple games on Brad and up 5 games on me. As I said last week, I am clearly going to have to do something really embarrassing. JD's over there smiling right now. And then Kentucky played yesterday. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I want to say one of my favorite parts last week was Brad changed one of his picks. He was like, and I laughed about it, and he was like, "Oh, shut up."
Kentucky played pretty good last night. I don't know if Vandy just sucks that bad.
Terrible.
But literally, if we wanted to run the ball and gain 9 yards, we could on every single play that we ran. I mean, our line looked impressive. Our backs looked impressive. Bowden looked impressive. Across the board, I thought we looked good. Defense looked good. They gave up, 14 points. One of those was on basically a pick six.
So I think Vanderbilt's just terrible. We just lined up and we big brothered them. You know what I'm saying?
We
just
really
bulldozed
did.
them and,
We just bullied them all night. And I said it was a good win. We got UT Martin coming up at home. That should be a win. We finished the season with Louisville to get to 7 games. Next week we'll hopefully get bowl eligible. And then it's going to be a big game against U of L, man.
And Louisville looked pretty good last night, boys.
Man, Louisville's a whole lot better than we thought.
Yeah.
And I think, I think we can line it up with them and smash a bit, but the offense is starting to finally come around a little bit. I feel like, Bowden threw for 100 yards last night.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I feel like it'll be good. So, let's do these picks. Y'all ready?
Let's do it.
All right. First game on the docket is number 9, Penn State at number 2, Ohio State. Ohio State is a 13-point favorite. And JD, as the leader, you have to go first.
Give me the Buckeyes. And we ain't putting in new rules now. I can tell you right now.
Hey, if Adam Schiff can do it, I can do it with college football.
This ain't
picks.
Congress, buddy.
Yeah, I got Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm going Ohio State too. Number 25, Oklahoma State, who is an 8-point favorite at West Virginia.
West Virginia.
I'm going WVU
Yeah,
too.
that's what I really wasn't going to do.
Okay. Number 22, Texas, 6.5-point favorite at number 12, Baylor.
Give me Baylor. I got you up in 11.
I'm going Baylor too. That's an odd spread. I wonder if I looked at that wrong. Because it's Texas, they're 22, Baylor's 12, and it's at Baylor, but they still got Texas favored. Does that make sense to you?
We've had that a few times this year.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think people just believe in Baylor,
Yeah. And then you got number 5, Georgia, 13-point favorite at Texas A&M.
Give me the Dogs.
I'll take the Dogs too. And then Brad, last one is number 14. Oh, did you didn't pick
I
the
did.
Georgia
I'm
game?
taking the Dogs too. We've agreed on every game here.
Yeah, that's no good.
That's perfect.
Number 14, Michigan is a 7.5-point favorite at number 24, Indiana.
Michigan.
Indiana,
What's the spread?
7.5.
Give me Michigan.
Indiana's pretty good. They're a lot better than
Yeah,
they normally are.
I picked against Michigan this past weekend with Michigan State, and they absolutely
They
took
got
it to the
destroyed,
woodshed.
didn't they?
Yes.
And, normally we always talk about JD's high school. I miss this. I miss high school football season being over. More so, I think, than I ever have because of doing this and
Right.
getting our updates from you. So, go ahead.
But I got a cool story for you.
Yeah, lay it on me.
Like, what's been going on my week. Now the football's over with. So, Tuesday was blistering cold. You all remember we got the snow and all that, and it was just miserable out. Well, Monday we decided to walk back up on the hill and set out some No, we decided to just take a hike up on the hill. So me and my two sons, we walk up on the hill, come back, everything's fine. So Tuesday, my oldest son Chase shows up and he decided he wanted to put some corn out for some deer and do some deer hunting up there at my tree stand. So we had to jump the 4-wheeler, get started, and send him up the hill with him and his buddy. Blistering cold. Like I said, it's already 7:30. It was so cold. It's dark. And so I get a text, Dad, this 4-wheeler won't start. I was like, we just jumped that thing. You didn't turn it off. He's like, well, you didn't tell me to. So I was like, all right. So I drove the vehicle up to the top of the hill, and of course, I'm mad. We had to take this little jumper we got up to the 4-wheeler. And I texted him, I said, you two just walk on down to the truck and warm up while I walk up and get the 4-wheeler ready. So my fat hind walks back up this hill again. I just walked up yesterday. I get the 4-wheeler jumped. I bring it back down the hill, and Chase jumps out of the truck to take the 4-wheeler back down to the house. And his buddy sits in the truck. I said, hey, Braden, you get your ass out of that truck. He goes, no, I'm frozen there. I said, get out of that truck. So I made him get back on the 4-wheeler.
Now, speaking of deer hunting stories, I do want to say this. I listened to the Weldagum Podcast this week. JD was on there. It's our friend Josh Williams up in Ohio, and he has had Brad on and has had JD on, and I'm assuming I'll probably go on there at some point. But I absolutely enjoyed both of your conversations on there. But JD, I sat in my office and laughed out loud at your deer hunting stories. That was so funny, and I don't know how you can work that into a comedy routine, but I'm all for that because that was so funny. I mean, I really did. And then Brad was great too. Y'all were talking about blind dates.
Yeah.
On yours, that was so funny. Well, guys, we'll wrap this one up for this week. Of course, as always, you can listen to us on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify. Go to YouTube, subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. That would help us out. And as we always end the show, from myself, from Brad, from JD, if you're having a bad week, or no matter how bad your day's going, if you just had bourbon, it always gets a little bit better. Talk to y'all next week.